thank you so much to everyone who's joined us. And yeah, if you've just joined in now, we were just sharing where we're from. So if you want to, feel free to add that in the chat. As you've already discovered the chat at this point, there's also that questions panel right beside it, and we'll go through how to use the Livestorm platform. But please do feel free to keep in communication as we go through all of this. So today we're going to be talking about maximizing your data's potential, the Department of Transportation and Public Works edition. So today we will be seeing some presentations from myself. I'm Chris, and one of our partners at GISTEC, and that's Bo. Bo, do you want to say hi?
Hi.
And we'll go through the Livestorm platform. So Elizabeth, I'll let you do your thing here.
Yeah, so as Chris just mentioned, please do feel welcome to use the questions and chat tabs there on the bottom right. If you do see any questions come in from others that look relevant to you, definitely give those an upvote. Share your reactions with us during the webinar. We love to see them. And then if you do have any audio issues throughout, you can click that bottom left button there for 4 simple troubleshooting steps there. And if you would like to download the slide deck and follow along with us live here, you can click that button on the top right of the PDF slides here, and then it will allow you to download.
Before we jump into that first poll, I would definitely recommend downloading those slides because we have a lot of resources linked throughout them. So we'll kind of be referring to them as we're going on with the presentation. But of course, if you have access to the slides, then you'll be able to access all those resources as well. So at this point, we can start off with our first poll, and we're just curious, what level of government are you part of? So just in that poll section on the bottom right-hand side, you might see a little one notification indicating that there's an active poll. We're just curious what kind of industry, what kind of departments people are working with, if it's all DOTs, Public Works, or if you're in a private or public sector. So let us know where you are currently working. And right out of the gate, we have a lot of departments of public works coming up. DOT is also a strong second. And then for the others, feel free to chat those in as well, just because we're curious where a lot of people are working and joining this webinar from.
Awesome. And folks, when you do vote, you will be able to see the results come in live there as well.
Awesome. 34. And Elizabeth, just let us know when we should continue on here. I'm not sure how many attendees we have.
Yeah, it looks like we've got most votes in now. So looks like, as you mentioned, Chris, Department of Public Works seems to be the largest chunk, about half of you this morning. So thanks everyone for joining.
Awesome. And yeah, I think at this point, we're also going to turn off our cameras just to save on some bandwidth. And we'll come on at the end once we go into a bit more of a discussion section as well. So we'll see you at the end. All right, so what we're going to be, now that we're good with that first poll, what we're going to be covering today is starting off with just a quick introduction to FME. So for anyone who isn't already an FME user, we'll give you a quick overview of what the platform looks like, the various offerings in the FME platform, and then we'll jump into managing transportation data, talk about some patterns and real world examples, and then we'll leave you off with some resources. We'll do a little bit of summary, and then of course, a discussion at the end as well. So with that in mind, please, again, feel free to chat things out throughout, ask questions in that questions panel. We're going to do our best to answer these on the go as the webinar is going. But if we can't get to them at that point, we will absolutely do our best to answer those in the discussion period. So starting off with what is the FME platform? So starting off with that, we'll talk about what is the value of FME. We're really a no-code enterprise integration platform that enable users to connect to data across over 450 data systems, rather. That can range from spatial data, big data, non-spatial, and even real-time data sensors. So we have over 500 native tools built into the platform. We call them transformers, and these help you get the most out of your data. That's not including our free marketplace of tools on the FME Hub. So the Hub is really a marketplace where data experts like Bo have created things like LRS tools and made them available to all FME users. And that's a fantastic place where all FME users can contribute to expand the tools available in the FME environment. All of these tools on that marketplace are built using other FME transformers. You can actually open them up and edit them. So it's just really expanding how people are using FME and bundling it into a nice package. FME also enables organizations to automate their data workflows using things like batch processing, event-driven automations, which we'll see in a second here, and even real-time data stream processing if you're working with IoT sensors. And lastly, FME workspaces can be consumed in what are called FME server apps, which are essentially just easy to use web forms. And we'll see that in this video that we're going to take a look at right now. This is the authoring environment where you build those workflows. So all of these workspaces start off with a reader or an input, which is that yellow object on the left-hand side. And again, those tools or the transformers are those blue objects in the middle, and all of those have parameters to make the data work exactly how you need it, whether it's validating or joining, kind of depends on what your needs are. On the right-hand side are writers, and those again, just your output, and you can publish these to FME server. Once you're happy with those workflows, you can publish them to the server environment and create them in what we call automations. And this allows your workflows to run in an event-based fashion. So in this case, we're configured to a webhook. So if you're working with enterprise and data integration, this would allow systems to connect to one another. You can also do things like an FTP receiving a file, a directory receiving a file, or even an email or an Amazon S3 bucket being modified. There's a lot of great options for how to trigger these automations. And once they have been triggered, you can run workspaces either in sequence or in parallel. And then at the end of that, you can do another action. So if you wanted to send an email once a success or a failure happens, that allows you to do that as well. This last bit that we're looking at are just those easy to fill web forms, which we call FME server apps. So it's just another way of running an FME workspace. Makes it really easy to use, puts the power of FME Workbench in the hands of more users, and really utilizes your full deployment a little bit more. And lastly, we also have stream processing, which is essentially the equivalent to a light switch at a light bulb, where when the switch is on, the stream is constantly running. It's just constantly receiving data from a message broker and processing the data to do things like aggregating, filtering, or anything like that. And then when you turn it off, it is off. So that is a little bit of the FME platform. So we'll keep going with that theme and talk about how our solution can benefit your organization. So first and foremost, we can save you time and money by automating tasks. And the big part of this is that it requires no code. You can learn our platform with all of our free resources. You can use Python if you'd like, but for the most part, we have a transformer that does all of this for you already. So this can include application integration, data integration, and can enable your team to be more effective and productive. And this can help you make better decisions, as you can improve your data quality by ensuring only high quality data is ingested into your application or into your analysis, and make it accessible to all users regardless of their preferred environment. So this allows you to do things, again, like respond to events when a file is being received, or a webhook for enterprise integration. And this really allows you to mitigate the risk of manual errors being entered, reduces the risk of bottlenecks, and siloed information being lost. So all things considered, FME really enables your organization to make the impossible possible while improving service and reducing risk by enabling you to maximize the value and utilization of your data. So we'll go into one more poll before we get into the next section, and that is, how do you use FME in your current role? So we're curious here. Are you currently just learning how to use FME? Do you occasionally use FME like once or twice a week, maybe the odd month? Or maybe you work with FME on a regular basis, like a daily basis. Are you the FME champion in your organization? So that would mean you're the person that is the go-to resource for all things asked about FME. Or maybe you just oversee FME projects and you're more of a manager level. So just let us know kind of what area you fall under in that section. Okay, we have a healthy spread on this one, actually.
Yeah, it looks pretty evenly spread throughout here.
Okay, we actually have a tie. This is looking good. I was not expecting this. Awesome. We'll give it a couple more seconds while a couple more votes trickle in, because I see we had 49 in the previous one. So we'll give it a few more seconds here. All right, and I think we will continue on with this point. So yeah, it looks like we have a really close race where most of the people joining us today are occasionally using FME rather, a few FME champions, and some work with FME on a regular basis. So again, welcome everyone. We're going to be learning a lot and sharing a lot of resources here. So it doesn't matter really what your role is in this case. We're going to be going through all of these resources, and hopefully these will be beneficial for you and allow you to bring back use cases that you could consider in your organization. So we've been in contact with many DOTs, and it's really amazing to hear how many systems can be utilized for a single system, whether it's permitting, construction, surveying, or honestly anything in between. Data management can quickly become overwhelming, and this is where an enterprise integration solution like FME can help your organization utilize your data more effectively. The transportation industry sees many different kinds of data, and obviously you're well aware of that. You work with it on a daily basis, whether it's in an FME context or just in your day-to-day operations. And typically, you obviously have to deal with multiple systems for things, whether it's like a field survey, reporting stuff on a tablet, dispatch, asset management, GIS, even reporting systems. How do all of these things fit together? So again, utilizing something like data or application integration where possible can result in operational improvements for things, whether it's a project, safety for the public or your workers, can be a time or cost savings. There's a lot of different use cases for FME to fit into this piece and really help your organization maximize the value of your data. So I'll hand it off to Bo to start off a little bit of some use cases that are currently going on in the industry and his 3 phases of FME.
Thank you, Chris. I like the mantra, there is an FME promise to every data challenge. Speaking of data challenges, I argue that DOTs and DPWs have the lion's shares compared with other state or local government agencies. I came up with this hard-to-read table hastily a few days ago, and charting the government agencies' engagements with data types, data themes, operational programs, and asset management programs in those 4 categories. If you have good eyesight, which I do not have, and you can tell some of the things it might not be complete because my point is not to be exhaustive, complete, or even accurate. My point is showing the challenges, the diversity DOTs and DPWs face in comparison with their peer agencies. And I would highlight, especially for DOTs, there are 2 things in addition to diversity, is the LRS and federal reporting, which is LRS based. And PDW or DPW, they may use LRS, typically larger agencies would, but most smaller PDWs, they do not have to deal with LRS. And LRS itself comes with, essentially, I think LRS is an enduring love and hate relationship most agencies have. It's just tricky to handle. So therefore, I think the DOTs and DPWs are the ones they can benefit more from the FME technologies in general. As you may already know, are about to discover, FME handles challenges in an elegant way, which boils down to the 3 patterns I would like to introduce. Pattern number 1 is the classic ETL. This is the most fundamental pattern that bears the dizzying array of FME tricks. This is trick or treat season, by the way. We start with data sources as the raw ingredient, if you will, and you can see we have data typically with your GIS or LRS at the center, along with other data systems or applications either on-prem or in the cloud. Then there is the ingredient. We follow certain, these are the ingredients. Then we have the recipes reflecting the agency's business goals. So essentially FME can, based upon your recipes, to cook up the content as your target, as your output. Then we talk about the destination, where this, how do we, in what form to present your content or your dishes prepared. And finally, we are going to deliver. It's how they are to be consumed. Think about this file typically for email attachments or for download, or cloud data, or in data warehouses, those are be consumed by dashboards or other applications. And in this environment, what we typically need is FME Workbench, plus occasional, most likely will be used by either OS level scheduling, because you want this to be sustainable processes running on a weekly, nightly, or monthly basis. And if you do not have FME server, you can use OS level scheduling, applications and system applications to do that. Or if you have FME server, it really makes scheduling and monitoring of your jobs a breeze. Now, the second pattern, I call this as the interactive pattern. As you may all know, FME started as a no-code, visual-driven data transformation utility for administrators and skilled analysts. It wasn't really intended for end user, I would say, until the release of FME server, maybe, I don't know, maybe maybe more than 7 years ago. Yeah, with RESTful API. With that, if I click next, and there's a server app and also custom server app, you will be able to, the end user is able to engage the complex FME ETL process prepared by the FME pros and analysts, and in a meaningful, user-driven, self-service manner. You can act, you can upload, you can receive. Think about click and ship use case. Later we'll talk about it. So for this pattern, what we need is FME server, and FME server came with a server app generator, or you can customize it further, or you can create your own web application through RESTful API calls. All right, let's go to the webhook trigger. This is my favorite. And we all love a humble or invisible hero who behind the scenes help others perform tricks that only FME can. So that's what this webhook is all about. Think about, you have applications such as Survey123 or SalesWorks, Salesforce, or most RDBMS. And they have their strengths, but sometimes they are lacking certain capabilities. No worries. We have FME server. And as long as those applications support certain type of trigger or certain type of webhook interface, we can leverage FME ETL, the first pattern, which is so powerful as we come to know, and all behind the scene even. It is as though FME is just delivering stuff behind the scene. It's the invisible hero. What do we need here? We need third-party apps that supports event triggers, such as webhook or just a typical database trigger, and plus FME server, and with the webhook trigger. Think about it. It really opens up the much wider world of integration. I'd like to wrap up my portion with a summary of use cases and application patterns. And in the category of data transformation, I'd like to mention about data warehousing and visualization as illustrated, as being practiced by Arizona DOT and Connecticut DOT and many others, I believe. And that mostly in this type of application, mostly we're talking about just ETLs. There's not necessarily, well, the interaction, visualization certainly is interactive. That typically is not done furnished directly by FME. It is the other application, such as ArcGIS dashboard, Google dashboard, Tableau, what have you, to interact with it. So I think from FME's perspective is the ETL pattern that provides the service. And road and highway, and for many of you who are the DOT JIST pros, road and highway is a very important part of most of the organization, I would say, most of DOTs. Right? Its QA, QC, and dashboarding can be quite challenging. And AZ-DOT and Ohio DOT, these are two I know of, are really leveraging FME to tackle this challenge. Then there are LRS analytics and operations in support of FME. Again, AZ-DOT and Ohio DOT, they're doing it. And it's not that road and highway doesn't do it. It just doesn't do it as efficiently, as well, as flexible as FME. Okay. And then data formats and structure conversion, this is pretty basic. Many DOTs, they acquire FME for this purpose to start with, I would think. Then there's one other thing I think of, and I don't think anyone's using it, but certainly very, very possible if we're dealing with roads and highway, sometimes they're struggling with the metadata, the consistencies of certain type of operations in terms of registration layers and in terms of setting layers in certain ways. I think FME has a way to help through even an interactive dashboard, interactive interface to help drive this process to making the road and highway administration more visually accessible, more consistently implemented. And on the self-service application side, and typically get your own QC report. And many places say, you have a layer, we have a state-wide QC standard. Instead of you go ahead, upload the layer, and it will tell you where things are bad, right? Or the CAD file, whether your CAD file meets certain CAD standards within the organization. This is really a very typical, one of quite popular pattern use case, and it involves some interaction, right? People need to upload. So that's two patterns being involved in this case. Then there's a clip and ship application. Old AZ-Geo. AZ-Geo is Arizona's geospatial clearinghouse. And had it, essentially user can identify, they can pick any layers that's available, identify county or particular known boundary jurisdictions, identify the projections they want to have, and identify the data types, being shapefile or file-based geodatabase or CAD file even, what have you. It's a self-service thing. Okay, the second group. Okay, we have the real-time application, which Chris will mention. We'll talk about the Iowa DOT's case for snowplow operation in 511. And also Internet of Things data analysis, just have had a chance to work with through Wood engineering company, environmental company, and work on the New Mexico project, where they use pressure sensors and tilt sensors to monitor the sinkholes, potential sinkholes on top of a major highway interchange. By monitoring, they come up remedial operations to stabilize the ground, so to speak. Then there's certainly fleet management, which I think Chris will mention, or even have a clip showing how that is being done. So in this real-time application, sometimes it just ETL portion will work. You don't really necessarily need to have an interactive kind of or webhook type of situation. Certainly with the new stream, it further augmented the capacity with this windowing function, moving window functions. It's just way more flexible, but that's on the bleeding edge right now. I do not know anyone's using it in the DOT or DPW space. Then third-party application system enrichment, that's how I coin it. Essentially e-ticketing project, which Chris will mention. And also in-field generation and report generation and submission, which I will talk briefly later in a specific example. And in these two cases, Webhook made FME the invisible hero. You will see that. And there are certainly emerging applications such as augmented reality 811. And for those of you who do not know what 811 is, essentially the blue stick in some other places. Essentially, when you dig, you need to make sure you know what's under the ground. With augmented reality, it's possible you can identify before you dig. You can virtually see what's behind underneath the ground where you plan to dig, right? And then there's also machine learning operation if we are really interested. And you can search online for the Justice presentation at the this year's FMUC. So I think that's wrap up my portion. Thank you. I'm turning this over to you, Chris.
All right. So yeah, at this point, we're going to turn over to some more real world examples. We're going to go through a couple of, a few customer cases and how they've utilized FME for certain projects. So we'll start things off with Arizona DOT. As Bo mentioned, they are using FME for a couple of things, but the one that we want to highlight the most is that they're leveraging FME technologies to connect the data silos, enable data visualization and discovery, harmonize their LRS data, spatial and non-spatial data sets, as well as weaving best practices into a strong data governance fabric, rather. As a result, they were able to improve data processes, make data more accessible for decision makers and planners via their dashboards, which we'll see on the next slide, all while improving the quality of their data. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, this is where we start off with our resources. So all those blue texts with underlines, those are all going to be links to either a presentation or an article. And it'll kind of explain a little bit more details about that specific project. So Bo, I believe you wanted to talk a little bit about this slide. This is kind of their dashboard for their highway system detail log, and I can send out the link as well.
Thank you, Chris. And this is one of our favorite accomplishment. Application is really fun. And the implementation of roads and highway in 2016 broke the 30-year-old ADA tradition of publishing the state highway logs, either detail or summary logs. And because the sudden change of platform and also many of the complexity involved, they were not quite ready to do that. And a couple of years ago, we started to resurrect this tradition. So we used FME. And it's a processing about 30 or so LRS layers in roads and highway through FME. And the process was quite intense. But I would say the most of our effort was involving in identifying the data bugs and facilitate and help the other teams to fix the data, because LRS, one of the things that the layer and layer separation resulting in you do not even know, the errors exist. But using FME, we're able to help them to clean up data in a significant way, and also later creating this ArcGIS dashboard based live detail log. By detail log, essentially, you identify a particular route, then you're along the route within its measure, measurement in miles. You can see various events or to changes of attribution and assets, things of that nature. Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Bo. Next up, we have Iowa DOT. So Iowa they have come up with a lot of really innovative solutions using either sensors and FME or various data sets. And we're going to focus on their roads project specifically for this one. So Iowa DOT maintains over 9,000 miles of roadways and over 4,000 bridges to serve their transportation needs to the state's citizens. And they want to deliver near real-time situational awareness that they've already accessed via a public-facing plow portal. So we'll see that in the next slide. What you see on the left-hand side of this slide, that image, is actually data that they provide to local newscasts as well. So they're using FME to really get a hold of all this data and send it in different directions, whether it needs to go to a public-facing dashboard or out to public news stations for real-time reporting. All of this is possible with FME. So they're using FME alongside ArcGIS Online, so, Oracle, KML, and Microsoft Azure. And now they provide plow data and their CAM imagery via that web portal, which we'll see on that next slide. So they're doing this with an automation to keep the data up to date. So in the background, FME is retrieving the active plow data from an Oracle database once per minute. It'll create a KML file that's uploaded to Windows Azure. And then ArcGIS Online accesses that KML to build that online presentation. And this is refreshed at a regular interval. So using this public site, individuals can really check on the road conditions before setting out on their travel, making it safer for the public. The media, and as I mentioned earlier, the media also reports this on the regular newscasts as well. So it's kind of accessible in multiple different mediums. So we'll take a look at an example of what this looks like. So this is their DOT PlowCams portal, where you can see there's actual images from those snow plows, as well as some road conditions as well. So they're using an automation for this. Another method could be to use an FME server stream processing operation. So this would allow your data to be processed at real time. I was doing it using a different mechanism, which is providing near real time as well. So there's a couple of different methods that you can use for this, and this is the direction that they've gone in. So it's a fantastic way of just making data more accessible and increasing the safety for the public as well as for their workers. Next up, we have Utah DOT, and this is for the e-ticketing. So oftentimes we find that our clients figure out for themselves how to expand FME and better maximize the value of their data. In 2019, the Utah DOT came up with their e-ticketing system after a number of engineers and inspectors have been talking about their frustrations about having to manually collect and keep track of all of their inspection tickets during a resurfacing project. Their GIS construction team lead overheard their colleagues saying, wouldn't it be nice to have some sort of method for doing their material inspections on their devices? And after doing some quick checking and investigating, it was figured out that there's some third-party software for this, but it was a little too costly for their budget. So they were thinking about doing some custom coding, but then they realized, hey, FME could have a say in this and might be able to accomplish this for us. So they were able to develop a workflow that incorporates JSON data with Survey 123, and the construction GIS team deployed it on a few pilot projects. Some of the feedback that they've received using the new e-ticketing system is that not only do the DOT inspectors love that, but they also found that the billing and invoicing team report saves about 80% of their time that they would have had to do with their regular process. So it kind of benefited multiple parties in this case. So Utah DOT is now deploying this across more resurfacing projects statewide, and they're leading the charge for other DOTs to follow suit as well. So it's a fantastic way to find additional use cases for FME in the organization. And Bo, I think I'll pass off for you for Ohio.
Thank you. Well, Ohio DOT found out that using FME for HPMS publication and for Esri road and highway event layer validation had the following advantages. One is cleaner and easier HPMS publication. Two, more frequent data publishing. Three, automated procedure. Four, self-service. So this is the automation is behind the scene, and this event layer validation by user is kind of self-service stuff. And it's a major improvement from what they had to endure prior to going to this route. Okay, I think this is the last example. This is coming from Connecticut DOT. Okay, and Connecticut DOT fulfills the complex in-field workflow that generates reports activates email notification for approval, and upon approval, updates the authoritative database, all through a Survey 123 app in field. Of course, authoritative database is sitting in the headquarters. And this is something quite amazing to me. It's just great work from them. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Bo. And at this point, we've obviously shared a couple of use cases and different customer stories, and those are linked throughout this presentation again. Now we want to turn it over to you, to the audience. We want to hear a little bit about what 1 to 3 use cases are you most interested in implementing in the next year. So obviously you're here for a reason. You wanted to learn a little bit more about how DOTs and DPWs are using FME in their day-to-day operations. So just in that poll section, we want to hear, what is your next project that you'd like to implement? This can kind of help us either build out resources or stay in touch with you, see how we can assist you on that journey. So you see data warehousing is getting a quick lead, and I think they are going to get, they might be overpassed. Oh, they're staying on top. So this one is, again, pretty spread out like that previous slide, or previous poll rather. And of course, there's also, oh, sorry, go ahead, Elizabeth.
I was just going to note that, folks, you will have the option to choose more than one in case, yeah, you can pick a few if you'd like, of cases that are most interesting to you to implement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks like data warehousing and visualization is staying on top too. So that is at the top of everyone's mind, apparently. And self-serve data requests is a nice second. Real-time processing also popped up as a second now, and that's dropping. So that's interesting because that could be utilized using stream processing, using the FME server option on there. As well, if you want to be more near real-time in response to things like a webhook, that could be done in an automation. So you have a couple of options with that one. The self-serve data requests, again, we do have those FME server apps, and that's a great way to leverage self-serve requests because you can get your users, whether they're internal or external, to request the data sets based on either drop-down parameter or selecting from a map. So it's a little bit more interactive. And data warehousing, of course, we can connect to many different data systems, so we can really help facilitate which way your data needs to move in either direction. So that's awesome. Thank you for participating in that poll. So we'll leave you off with, before we get into kind of that next steps and discussion and summary, is just with some additional use cases. So for smart transportation, we've seen a couple of hints of use cases for things like automated vehicle location, or what we call AVL. Other ones that pop up are onboard diagnostics, so telemetry data from those IoT sensors on your vehicles. This could be done for predictive maintenance, as well as inventory, fleet management, and asset utilization to make sure that your fleet is operating as smoothly and efficiently as possible. So with the world of sensors becoming more apparent and more sensors providing data to your organization, you have the choice to either do something with it or just let it go away and not be utilized. So with FME, you do have the option to utilize that. And again, it doesn't have to process all of the data that's coming in from that sensor. You can summarize that. You can filter it down or build out aggregates and allow it to go into your data warehouse or into your visualization tool of choice. So a lot of great options with that. We have a couple of great streams webinars, which I have linked down at the bottom of this slide. So it's a little bit of a technical topic, so we won't really get into it too much today. But if you are interested in stream processing or real-time data processing, whether it's with an IoT device or another source, that is a great resource to have. It is accompanied by a couple of knowledge base articles as well. So a lot of great resources in that link. So at this point, where can we help you get started? So what we had in mind with this is just to introduce a little bit of a phased approach with small wins. So what we kind of reach out to our DOT friends from various organizations is we ask them to help identify, like, what was that starting point that got the ball rolling for FME in your organization, and help with those projects that were currently pain points. And what we came up with their help was, you really need to start by identifying a process that you know very well that could benefit from being automated. So whether it's something that is currently just a main pain point, or it's really slow, could be a bottleneck in the process of a project, that could be a great piece for FME to fit in there. The second step would be to implement that with FME. So try to recreate that process with FME. Start small with this. You don't necessarily have to look at the project as a whole. So if you're looking at something like a big picture on a construction project, don't try to take that whole piece with FME. Start with one small component of it and continue to develop it and build it over time. Don't be afraid to make some failures along the way. That's how you're going to learn. As you get more familiar with FME, which goes into the third one, is to iterate. You'll continue to learn more techniques available in an FME workspace, whether it's a new transformer or a tool that you need to use, different topic to incorporate more data, whether it's a join or working with a specific format. This can help you to improve your existing workflow and improve that process. So again, this is really just working those small victories along the way instead of chasing for one huge big picture accomplishment. It's a lot easier to break this down into smaller workspaces, smaller accomplishments that are easier milestones to see your progress and achieve that goal. And the last step would be to really repeat. FME is not a one-trick pony by any means. You've seen a couple of different, well, very different use cases in this webinar. So engage with the FME community. Learn from others how they're using FME in their organization, do other DOT projects or public works projects, and pick a new process if something doesn't come up in that search, but you've identified a new process could benefit from this. Really, the end goal of this is we want to help you maximize the value of your data. So whether you're engaging with the FME community directly with our team here at SAFE or with our partners like Bo, the goal here is really to just implement more FME to help improve your operations. So all of this is to say, don't let the value of your data go to waste. Validate it, integrate it, automate it, do whatever you need to do using all of the built-in tools and formats that we have, and build those unique solutions as you've just seen with things like Arizona Geospatial, Utah DOT, Iowa, Connecticut, and Ohio as well. There's a lot of different customers doing different things, so we'll see another resource on how we can stay in touch with them and see how they're using FME a little bit later in the presentation. So this is essentially getting to our summary section here. So you can really achieve data integration. What we want to enable you, as we saw from that poll result, data warehousing is that #1 and dashboarding or visualization was that #1 response. So how can we help serve you better? Is it, if it's a lack of resources, we'd love to build some more resources for you, whether they're webinars specific for those topics or knowledge articles. We can do our very best to do so. We'll provide as many resources as possible for things like that, things like self-serve data requests or what we call FME server apps. We have a great getting started series for that, so feel free to take a look on the FME community for FME server apps. And as well, those real-time data processing was a close second in that poll, if I remember correctly. We have a great knowledge article and webinar specific to those topics. So those are a great place to start and help you accomplish your goals for future projects. So once again, if you don't have the capacity to take on these projects, or you don't really have the time or expertise in-house to do that, we do have a fantastic partner network with partners like Bo, who joined the webinar today, and they are the topic experts. So in this case, they'd be the transportation experts. So you don't necessarily have to have the bandwidth to learn and implement these for yourself. You can reach out to our partner network if you are looking for someone to help solve your data challenges. We have partners around the globe for anyone who is joining overseas, and these can help you implement your unique solutions to maximize the value of your data. And for those of you who are interested in taking on the projects yourself, and you do have the capacity, feel free to check out all of our free resources. And again, these range from the FME community articles, the knowledge base, the FME training. None of these require a sign up, and even the things that do require a sign up, which are called the FME Academy, and that's just like module-based learning. They're like 10 to 15 minute training tutorials. That does require a community login, but it's free to log in. It's free to sign up. It doesn't cost you anything. All it requires is a little bit of your time and attention, and you can learn how to maximize the value of your data there. So there's a lot of great resources in here. We've linked the customer stories, the webinars. We've also linked to the FME Accelerator, which is another great free resource, which allows you to learn how to get up and running with FME with minimal effort. It's about a 90-minute course. It's free to sign up. It is going to be running November 3rd at 9 a.m. Pacific time, so coming soon. And that last resource that we have is just on the right-hand side for LinkedIn users. So there is an FME in Transportation LinkedIn group, and this is a great way to connect with transportation users and share your victories. This is a great place to share those unique projects and just poke some ideas on how to better utilize data or FME in your organization. So it's a great place to share those ideas and learn as a community. So this is all to say, there's a lot of great free resources. We want to share as much knowledge as possible, make your day-to-day operations as smooth as possible, and hopefully these resources can help facilitate that. And I think I'll pass it off to Elizabeth to close us off at this point.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. So as a thank you for you all joining us today, we do have a community badge code that you can redeem in the community for points there. If you have yet to join the FME community, as Chris mentioned, it's a great resource to connect with other FME users and gain any solutions to your data challenges. And at this point, it does look like we have about 12 minutes remaining here for any questions, comments, or discussion here. So I think now we can turn back on our webcams here and take a look through.
Okay, and we're back. It doesn't look like we have any questions or chat that have come in throughout the webinar. So hopefully that means everything has been digested fully and you're ready to go to work for the rest of the day. But that doesn't mean we can't answer any questions that are incoming now. So if you do have any questions that you'd like to have answered at the moment, whether it's a question about one of the projects you saw or the implementations from any of the DOTs, we'd love to help explain those in a little bit more detail if we can.
Absolutely. And thanks everyone for chiming into the chat with any comments there throughout.
Yeah.
And this might be a good point to mention as well. If you do have any questions come up after the webinar, don't hesitate to reach out to us, info@safe.com. We'd love to chat with you about anything data. Awesome. And I think at this point, I'll just note as well, we will stay online for a couple minutes longer in case you do think of any questions at the end here. Feel free to add those in and we'll try to get to those prior to closing us off today. Thanks everyone for joining, and a big thank you as well to Bo joining us as a guest speaker this morning and lending your knowledge here. It's awesome to have you on. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Bo, for sharing your knowledge here. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks everyone. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.